What's up, guys? Welcome back. Back to another day of studying 7 habits. This is gonna be good today. Um, okay, quick story though. Today we went up to Table Creek Canyon up in American Fork, and we chainsawed through like 18 inches of ice, and then hopped in this freezing cold water up in this like Utah reservoir lake thing. It was awesome. It was amazing. Great experience. Anyway, so that's my story of the day. But I'm gonna be honestly just brief right now. It's super late and I want to go to bed. But I committed to doing this study, so we're gonna do it. But we're just gonna hop right into it. So this section is called primary and secondary greatness. So we're coming from the character ethic and the personality ethic, and now we're talking about primary and secondary greatness. So it says here, my experience with my son, my study of perception, and my reading of the success literature coalesced to create one of those aha experiences in life. When suddenly things click into place. I was suddenly able to see the powerful impact of the personality ethic and to clearly understand those subtle, often consciously unidentified discrepancies between what I knew to be true, some things I had been taught many years ago as a child, and things that were deep in my own inner sense of value, and quick fix philosophies that surrounded me every day. I understood at a deeper level why, as I had worked through the years with people from all walks of life, I had found that the things I was teaching and knew to be effective were often at variance with these popular voices. I am not suggesting that elements of the personality ethic, personality growth, communication skill training, and education in the field of influence strategies and positive thinking are not beneficial. In fact, sometimes essential for success. I believe they are, but these are secondary, not primary traits. Perhaps in utilizing our human capacity to build on the foundation of generations before us, we have inadvertently become so focused on our own building that we have forgotten the foundation that holds it up. Or in reaping for so long where we have not sown, perhaps we have forgotten the need to sow. Wow. Okay. So just like dissecting this a little bit, um, really cool how Stephen Covey spent a lot of his life consulting and teaching and communicating with people of various walks of life. So he was introduced to a lot of different paradigms, a lot of different ways of thinking. That combined with his studies of the entire American society um, literature since 1776 on like success, right? And so he, with that background and this experience with his son, it revealed to him and taught him the true nature of success and what primary greatness is, like what we actually should be striving for, our purpose. And so he's beginning to understand and to distinct these differences in how to view life and how to act and how to behave and how you see the world, between the personality ethic and the character ethic, between deep inner values and character and principles and quick fix techniques and shortcuts and um, skills. And so he's saying that, like, in addition to that, like, yes, he's seeing this difference, but I like how he classifies both of them as greatness, primary greatness and secondary greatness. So he's saying here that the personality ethic, right, like personality growth, communication skill training, and education, uh, like better positive thinking, influence strategies, like he's saying that they are beneficial and that sometimes they're even essential for our success, which is very, very true. Um, but he's saying that perhaps we're so focused on the skyscraper that we forget about our foundation or what actually holds it up. And that in reaping so long in this personality um, ethic and not sowing like a foundation, we've forgotten the need to actually sow that character foundation. So you have to set the foundation before you can build a skyscraper. But both are important to creating an organization. Like you do need the building. Just a foundation like isn't going to do a whole lot of good. So you need primary and secondary greatness. And so going on, he says, if I try to use human influence strategies and tactics of how to get other people to do what I want, to work better, to be more motivated, to like me and each other, while my character is fundamentally flawed, marked by duplicity and insincerity, then in the long run, I cannot be successful. Wow. So without that foundation, if I want the production or the fruit of joyful relationships or people to be motivated or to work more or even harder or to have influence strategies, if my character is fundamentally flawed, marked by duplicity and insincerity, or like a lack of genuine love for people, a lack of genuine care for them, a lack of a motivation to let others win, to be grateful for their wins and their successes, then we cannot be successful. He continues, my duplicity will breed distrust, and everything I do, even using so-called good human relations techniques, will be perceived as manipulative. It simply makes no difference how good the rhetoric is or even how good the intentions are. If there is little or no trust, there is no foundation for permanent success. Only basic goodness gives life to technique. Yeah, that happens a lot. Heck, like all the time, I'll meet people, and because I'm just barely meeting them, we don't have a high trust or a high like emotional bank account or like a good solid relationship. And so I'll try and like tell them these things, and they always like assume I'm like trying to sell them on something, which I am. Obviously, like yeah, I am trying to sell them on something, and it comes from like a good place in my heart, good intentions. Like I do like at least try to love them. Maybe I'm not always successful in that, but like that's my intent is to like love people and influence them to do things that actually are in their best interest, but they're perceiving it as duplicitous because there's low trust there. If there is little or no trust, there is no foundation for permanent success. Only basic goodness gives life to technique. So until people can see the basic goodness or basic character, then the techniques aren't going to do a whole lot of good. They're actually going to be perceived as a negative side effect, I would argue. Continuing on, to focus on technique is like cramming your way through school. You sometimes get by, perhaps even get good grades. But if you don't pay the price day in and day out, you never achieve true mastery of the subjects you study or develop an educated mind. Did you ever consider how ridiculous it would be to try and cram on a farm? Do you forget to plant in the spring, play all summer, and then cram into the fall to bring in the harvest? The farm is a natural system. The price must be paid and the process followed. You always reap what you sow. There is no shortcut. There's no shortcut. Guys, we reap what we sow, right? We can't cram our way through school. Like, yeah, we may get the good grades, but then we get hired on the job. What happens, right? Especially in the field of like a doctor, right? Like you could, like, let's say you do like cheat your way through school and you get good grades, you get a degree, and then you get hired, and now you're trying to like help someone out, but you have no idea what you're doing. You can't reap what you don't sow. There's no shortcut. Price must be paid, and the process must be followed. Cool. So going on, this principle is also true ultimately in human behavior, in human relationships. They, too, are natural systems based on the law of the harvest. In the short run, in an artificial social system, such as school, you may be able to get by if you learn how to manipulate the man-made rules to quote unquote play the game. It must in most one-shot or short-lived human interactions, you can use the personality ethic to get by and to make favorable impressions through charm and skill and pretending to be interested in other people's hobbies. You can pick up quick, easy techniques that may work in short-term situations, but secondary traits alone have no permanent worth in long-term relationships. Eventually, if there isn't deep integrity and fundamental character strength, the challenges of life will cause true motives to surface, and human relationship failure will replace short-term success. Wow. So he's saying in like short-term relationships or in short-term situations, personality will allow you to get by. But in long-term relationships, such as like family members or like marriage or your kids, or even coworkers, like people that you see on like a regular basis, um, they have no permanent worth. They don't work. If there isn't deep integrity and a fundamental character strength, then like just the regular obstacles or challenges of life are going to cause the true motives to surface. And then he says human relationship failure will replace short-term success. So we're going to be found out. Our true motives are going to surface and we're going to be found out. And people will start to literally distrust us, as they should, because our motives are bad. And we may think we have good motives, but in reality, we don't. It's like what Stephen Covey and Sandra went through with their son. They thought they had good motives in encouraging their son, but like they actually were just trying to better themselves as parents and to feel good about themselves so other people view them as good parents. And that was conditional upon how their kids behaved. And so they had to separate themselves from that paradigm, from that motive. And that took time, a lot of faith and prayer and meditation and thinking and pondering and reflecting and introspection. And so like we have to really rethink our motives, like why we're actually doing the things that we're doing. He continues, many people with secondary greatness, that is social recognition for their talents, lack primary greatness or goodness in their character. Sooner or later, you'll see this in every long-term relationship they have, whether it is with a business associate, a spouse, a friend, or a teenage child going through an identity crisis. It is character that communicates most eloquently. As Emerson once put it, what you are shouts so loudly in my ears, I cannot hear what you say. That's so funny. I love that line. We have this joke where people are like we'll say something to each other, and then we'll be like, "Sorry, I can't hear you over your actions." Sorry, noise canceling. Can't hear you. Your actions say otherwise. It's like so true. Like, um, I see this a lot in like professional sports players. Like, really good at what they do, really talented, but like their characters are just like flawed. They don't understand like how to have a deep, meaningful relationship with like their spouse or their kids, and like some do. I'm not saying that all don't. It just happens a lot in that field because they're so used to having the fame and recognition, just getting what they want, that they don't have to go through like the struggle of developing character. Um, Continuing on, there are of course situations where people have character strength, but they lack communication skills, and that undoubtedly affects the quality of relationships as well. But the effects are still secondary. So you can be really good character, but if you lack communication skills, then the relationship isn't going to be built as as good, because communication skills is how you first off understand people, help them feel heard and valued, but also it's how you communicate your ideas and your passions. It's how you present yourself. It's how you communicate love, how you communicate respect, how you communicate understanding, how you communicate charity, right? Like those communication skills are like very, very important. You have to build those meaningful and joyful relationships. Um, okay, continuing on, he says, in the last analysis, what we are communicates far more eloquently than anything we say or do. We all know it. There are people we trust absolutely because we know their character. Whether they're eloquent or not, whether they have the human relations techniques or not, we trust them and we work successfully with them. Oh yeah, a lot of my coworkers, like, um, I don't trust. Just like I'm like, yeah, I just don't know. Like, I just don't know your character yet. But then there are a lot of my coworkers who I just would genuinely trust them because I know their character. I worked with them for a while. I know who they are. I know how they're going to respond to certain events, to hard things. I've seen them in the face of adversity. I've seen how they respond, and so I know their character. And so I like fundamentally trust them because of who they are. So who they are speaks way more loudly than what they say or do. Pretty cool concept. And finishing off here, he says, In the words of William George Jordan, into the hands of every individual is given a marvelous power for good or for evil, the silent, unconscious, unseen influence of his life. This is simply the constant radiation of what man really is, not what he pretends to be. Dude, that's actually gold. Holy cow. Let me read that again. Into the hands of every individual is given a marvelous power, for good or evil, the silent, unconscious, unseen influence of his life. This is simply the constant radiation of what man really is, not what he pretends to be. Okay, so, bro, oh my heck. Dissecting this, it's like we there's this quote that my boss always tells me that's like, he says, you are setting the foundation of your life. Whether you know it or not, you are. So what is it? Right? It's like whether I choose to take responsibility for it and set a foundation by design, or if I just let it happen and set a foundation by default, by what other people tell me or what society tells me, like I am setting the foundation for my life. What is it? Right? And I think the same thing here that like we all because we're humans and like frankly like children of God. If you don't believe that, like that's totally fine. But like that's what I generally believe, that we're children of God, and as humans, as such, we have the power to act upon other things, right? Like we're not rocks where we wait to be acted upon, but we're actual people who react upon other things. So we have a silent, unconscious, unseen influence, and this is simply the constant radiation of what we really are, not what we pretend to be. So we actually are influencing people every moment of every day of our lives, every second. So what message are we giving across? Are we giving a message across of laziness, of complacency, of mediocrity, or are we giving off a message of hatred and sin, of duplicity, of insincerity, of greed, selfishness, or are we giving off a message of love and charity, of passion, of voice, of acceptance, of values, of principles, of um, like knowledge, light, truth. Like what's our constant message? Like who we are is a constant radiation of values, of principles. So like what is the message that you're giving off constantly to other people? And I would say that that's your character. That it's not these techniques where you pretend to have a positive attitude, or in these short-term relationships or situations you put on a smile or a good face and use these techniques. Like that's not it. It's like who you are fundamentally as a person. What's your constant radiation that you're giving off to people? What's your personal brand message? That is super fascinating. That was really cool, actually. I hadn't thought of that before until I just read this. Um, Guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope that you guys learned something. I certainly did, and I'm going to take actually like a really good deep ponder on this, like about the message that I'm giving off to people and what my constant radiation is. That's a really cool concept. But love you guys. I'm gonna go to bed because it's late. But have a great night, guys, and see you tomorrow.